I'm joined by former Foreign Secretary Jack Straw and unsuccessful Labour candidate in Chingford and Woodford Green, Faiza Shaheen. Good evening to both of you. May I first start with you, Jack Straw. Has it sunk in how bad this is for the Labour Party?
It certainly sunk into me. I fought the 1983 election, which was my second election, and I was due to lose on all the national predictions. Blackburn was then pretty marginal and was due to lose, and we bucked the trend there and have done so ever since. But that was a disaster. This is a worse disaster. Now, the party did understand the catastrophe at that stage, and that included the leader, Michael Foot. One of my concerns now, listening to what the leadership and people like Len McCluskey, who's one of the architects, let us be clear, of Labour's failure, not just over the last 4 years, but over the last 9 years, is how they're trying to blame everybody else but themselves.
Who do you blame?
I blame the leadership of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn in particular. I also blame John McDonnell and Len McCluskey and those around them in this cult, as my friend and former colleague Alan Johnson described Momentum. They've gone into a kind of closed bubble.
Did you vote for Labour?
I did vote for Labour. I campaigned for Labour. It's part of my soul. I joined the Labour Party. That happened before.
Even though you feel it's like a cult?
I'm not the Labour Party, but the people running part of the Labour Party these days, the Momentum organisation. Brexit, of course, was the key factor in the election. But there's a reason for that, and that goes back to the leadership, and it goes back beyond the 2017 election. Jeremy Corbyn in the 2016 election could have done what the party wanted him to do and vigorously campaigned from the off for a Remain vote. He failed to do so. Those in the Remain campaign had an extraordinary, difficult task in getting him to do anything. He was a sort of invisible man there.
Okay, so pause that thought for a moment. I think it's an important one. But let's just bring in Faiza, who's been out trying to win a seat here. First of all, commiserations. It was a close run thing between you and Ian Duncan-Smith, who just pipped you there. You must be feeling really let down by your leader.
Look, I feel like this is a very dark day for the country. I've had so many messages today with lots of people that don't feel as Boris Johnson was saying, and you know, teachers worried about special education needs, funding, you know, parents worried about their kids' future, young people worried about what's going to happen to green investment and climate investment. And I don't blame Jeremy Corbyn directly for that. What I would say is there's a number of factors at play. Brexit, of course, you know, look, I'm a Remainer. Ultimately, we had some of the most Leave seats and some of the most Remain seats. It was a very difficult situation for Labour. But we've also got to look at the way in which the system, I think, is rigged. Like, why aren't we talking about the fact that, you know, 88% of Conservative ads, for instance, had some lies in them, the ones on Facebook, for instance. You know, why aren't we have to do the internal reflection, but we have to do the way in which the system is working as well.
Jack Straw's shaking his head here.
It won't work
to call out lies. We shouldn't call out lies.
Look, there are lies in every election I've ever fought, all right? And the Conservatives have always had more money to put into elections. But we won elections in the past because we had good leadership and a good programme. Yes, this was a programme which was more towards the centre, because that's where the public is. And one of the madnesses of the Corbyn-McCluskey view is to disown the whole of what New Labour did. These were amongst the most successful...
These are different times, though, Jack.
Well, that's one way of body swerving.
We've learnt from that time that you had in office as well.
But we ought to celebrate what we achieved. But as it was, there was been the subject of denigration of fantastically successful Labour government.
Just coming out of this war between which Labour here perhaps should be looked at, what is safe to say is it didn't go down well with the electorate. It's the worst result. Would you change a lot about your manifesto?
Look, from the conversations I was having on the doorstep, it was less about the manifesto, more about, I guess, the demonisation of Jeremy Corbyn and how that had really sunk in with people. I think it was less about specific policies in the manifesto.
It was your leader, not the message.
It was the way in which the leader has been portrayed, and that's very different, right? And you can't. How can you make that noise when time and time again we've seen so many lies? I'm not saying Jeremy Corbyn's perfect. Of course he's not, but you know, we've had Newsnights where they've made him look like a Russian. You know, we've had newspaper stories where they talk about him as a Czech spy. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Sorry, can I just say at that point, do you, and I'll let Jack Straw respond, but do you not think that the British people can make up their own minds. You're sort of talking about the media like it's got a vice onto people. They also read manifestos, they look at leaflets, they see and read their own things out there. Why did you sigh there, Jack Straw?
Don't you see how the media and the fact that our press is so biased? When was the last time we had a Prime Minister that was chosen that wasn't supported by Rupert Murdoch, for instance, right? And we've got to understand that as well. Absolutely, there's mistakes that have been made. I think the manifesto, for instance, we didn't communicate it well. It's an amazing blueprint for the future of this country.
But we needed to... Hang on, was it too good to vote for?
No, it's not that it's too good to vote for. It's about communication, and it was also about people in this country feel like it was too good to be true. That's what I heard on the doorstep again and again.
So it's poor communication, you could argue, failure of leadership. Jack Straw, you did a big sigh there at the blaming of the media.
Well, look, Faisal, you think the media is...
Faiza was a man's name. My name is Faiza.
Faiza, my apologies. Faiza, the press has always been biased against Labour, and it's difficult now, but it was very much worse.
It's only male supported.
Hang on a second. It was very much worse when the only media were the 11 print titles and the broadcasters, and that was it. Tony Blair was demonised by the media. Demonise, they called him.
Yes,
all of that stuff. He was able to break through that, as was in his time Harold Wilson. And the reason for that was that, first of all, those leaders did not carry the baggage that Jeremy Corbyn had.
They also didn't have a transformative agenda to the extent
that
we were talking about.
We had a dramatically transformative agenda, and what's more, you can't transform anything unless you have power. And the manifesto was full of nice things to have, but it was promising pennies from heaven. It wasn't, I mean, it was costed up to a point, but these were dramatic increases in public spending, which were never going to happen.
But, I mean, if you listen to the plan there, what we heard from the Housing Minister about what they want to do in investing in small towns. I mean, the money that they're saying is much smaller than what we have, but it is similar in that they are understanding that we haven't made those investments.
And one of the reasons I've been in the Labour Party for 59 years is because I profoundly believe in higher levels of public spending. But you've got to take people with you.
So
you've got to bear in mind that the taxes are paid by the ordinary public, and that argument was not made. And I just want to make this point about Jeremy Corbyn.
And then I have to ask you about Mr Corbyn in the future. Do you carry on?
Jeremy, of course, he was subject to attack, but I'm afraid it wasn't the media who made up the anti-Semitism over which, and even Len McCluskey has said that Jeremy Corbyn did far too little about that and too late. That was Corbyn. It wasn't the press who made up that Jeremy Corbyn had played footsie with terrorist organisations like Hamas and Hezbollah. I mean, and I've seen him do this. Defend the Provisional IRA when they were letting off bombs, killing innocent people in this country.
I mean, you're not rerunning their lines again. I mean, what we've got to talk about is what did work and what hasn't worked, and what we can learn.
Do you accept any of those as true?
You know, or you think the media invented them? Like right now, we have a Tory majority. We have a Tory majority, and this whole infighting is exactly what Labour shouldn't be doing.
Okay, well then,
and we should absolutely.
I'm completely out of time. A final question, please, if I can. We have heard both of you go back and forth on Labour and the future, and I think we're seeing a bit of this soul-searching now about the future of the Labour Party. Do you think Jeremy Corbyn should have apologised? Ed Miliband did straight away after he lost. Yes or no today?
Yes, of course he should.
Yeah, I mean, he said he's going to step down. I mean, the big thing for us is how we fight going forward, and that's what we need to focus on now, because there's going to be a lot of hardship in this country.
And I think we can see from your discussion, thank you for your time, that there will be this soul-searching. Jack Straw. There we go, for hearing from Faiza Shaheen, who wasn't successful in that seat, but a very close call. Last night was a story.